Hello there and good to have you join us in news on the Hour on Plus TV Africa. I'm David Alabi and here are stories making the headlines. Now we present to you our news package on Africa. But first we start with some sad news that Kofi Annan, the former UN Secretary General who won the Nobel Peace Prize for humanitarian work, has died at the age of 80. He was born on the 8th of April 1938. Now we'll bring you, during the course of this bulletin, the life and times of the late icon. Meanwhile, reactions are pouring in, and one of those is coming from former South African Archbishop Desmond Tutu, who says he's mourning the death of a fellow Nobel Prize winner, Kofi Annan, saying, quote, "We give thanks to God for him." And mourning the death of the fellow Nobel Peace Prize winner, Kofi Annan, saying, "We give God great thanks for him." Meanwhile, Desmond Tutu says the Ghanaian-born Annan represented our continent and the world with enormous graciousness, integrity, and distinction. Meanwhile, United Nations top human rights official Zeid Ra'ad Al Hussein says former UN Chief Kofi Annan was, quote, "a friend to thousands and a leader of millions." The government and people of Ghana are deeply saddened by the news of the death in Bern, Switzerland, of one of our greatest compatriots. President Nana Akufo-Addo says on Twitter, "He was a good friend whom I saw only weeks ago," says British Prime Minister Tony Blair. Meanwhile, we also bring you a tribute coming in which says that a great man, dear brother, says the chair of the African Union Commission, Musa Faki Mahamat. We now cross over to Algeria, where President Abdelaziz Bouteflika on Friday dismissed two senior generals. The presidency, Said, said on fresh upheaval in the OPEC oil producers' power structure ahead of a presidential election next year. The generals Said B and Labi Chantouf had been in charge of the first and second military regions. Algeria, a key gas supplier to Europe, is divided into 6 military regions. A presidency statement did not give a reason for the dismissal, which came 2 months. But after Bouteflika sacked the North African country's powerful police chief, Abdel Ghani Hamil, he also fired in June Menad Nuba, who was in charge of the gendarmerie, a separate security unit controlled by the army. To some health matters now, the ongoing Ebola outbreak in eastern part of the Democratic Republic of Congo has particularly affected children. The UN Children's Fund has said the outbreak in North Kivu province was declared on the 1st of August, and the United Nations Children's Agency reported that more than 50 youngsters have so far lost their parents to Ebola. UNICEF added that so far 2 children have died, while 6 others who are either affected by the disease or suspected to be, are receiving treatment at 2 centers in the region. Dr. Gianfranco Rotigliano, UNICEF representative in the DRC, said, quote, "The children affected by the ongoing epidemic need special attention and care." End of quote. The rest of the news at this hour continues in just a moment as we bring you other stories making the headlines. Don't go anywhere. Glad to have you back. This is still news on the Hour on Plus TV Africa. We now bring you headlines from across Nigeria as acting president Professor Yemi Osinbajo on Friday visited the scene of a collapsed 3-story building complex at Utako, Abuja, the Federal Capital Territory of Nigeria. After inspecting rescue operations at the scene, the acting president described the incident as very unfortunate. He condoled with the relatives of those who might have died and those injured, and as well as expressed optimism that those who are still trapped under the rubble would be rescued. Quote, "The National Emergency Management Agency is here. The Federal Capital Territory authorities are here. The minister himself is here. The federal government is here." The acting president was accompanied to the scene by the FCT Minister, Malam Muhammad Bello, and the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Boss Mustafa. Rescue efforts are still on course as at the time of filing this report. We now cross over to the National Assembly, where there was a heated argument as lawmakers expected to approve the budget for Nigeria's 2019 general elections expressed displeasure over clarity. The federal government is requesting a transfer of funds from budgeted 578 billion naira earmarked for capital projects to fund INEC's 189 billion naira election budget proposal. This, however, is not going down well with some lawmakers. Part of a joint National Assembly committee expected to scrutinize the budget.
There is no further issue to raise as far as INEC is concerned. Only to remind this joint committee that from now to the 2019 general elections is 182 days, 20 hours, 17 minutes and 33 seconds.
The president has approved 189 billion. Therefore, should you wish to appropriate for the full 189 billion now, the president would have no objection. However, the president did say, and he did emphasize, that because of funding constraint, this should be done by way of virement, so as not to increase the overall size of the 2018 budget.
If we pass the budget of INEC now, and we do not pass the budget of all these other agencies, which are election-related budgets, I think we'll still have a problem.
We are not playing politics with 2019 budget or elections budget. For those of you who think that politics is being played, there is no politics in this thing.
The issue is this: if this committee appropriates the 189 billion, the budget size of 2018 will shoot by that difference of 46.5 billion, which is the fear of Mr. President.
There's an appropriation committee. The other committees that will look into those funding sources. So why must we restrict ourselves to those funding sources that you have so-called listed?
I do understand that by the provision of the powers conferred on the Parliament, that this budget is dead on arrival.
We are a committee on INEC. We are not the committee on appropriation. I think the issue before us is whether or not the budget of 189 billion submitted by INEC is worthy of approval.
Minister of Budget and Planning, you are holding a document which you said is from that document that we are going to source the money for funding of INEC. And to all of us, I don't know whether any of us has that document and the project. Therefore, if we know what I'm saying, if it is not that's why I said it's complicated now.
We can tell Mr. President that we want the entire amount of money to be sourced from the 2018 budget, in view of the fact that by the time the budget will come, the 2019 budget will come, elections, issues are in the air.
Meanwhile, the Nigerian Independent National Electoral Commission says it will not postpone the 2019 general elections because of the delay in the passage of its budget. INEC Chairman Professor Mahmood Yakubu made the clarifications while fielding questions from State House correspondents on Friday in Abuja. He said that there was no provision under the law for postponement of the elections. Quote, "The date is formed and fixed, February 16, 2019. We issued a timetable way in advance for the very first time in the history of our nation. Citizens of Nigeria know when elections will take place 1 year in advance. It has never happened before." End of quote. Now, a prominent member of the Parliamentary Support Group, a body of the All Progressives Congress members in the National Assembly, loyal to President Muhammadu Buhari, Senator Ovie Omoagege, has said the APC caucus is insisting on the reconvening of the National Assembly. Mr. Omoagege also pointed out that the APC caucus was also against the alleged proposal for a joint session of the Senate and House of Representatives whenever President of the Senate, Bukola Saraki and Yakubu Dogara reconvene the National Assembly. The lawmaker insisted that Senator Saraki must not remain Senate President after his defection from the APC to the People's Democratic Party, PDP. APC senators had met with the national chairman of the ruling party, Adams Oshiomhole, during the week on the very matter. And on Tuesday, the Pennsylvania Supreme made public one of the broadest ever investigation into Catholic clerical sex abuse of minors. The news has sparked off reactions across the globe, raising more questions on the celibacy of the priesthood and the supposed silence of the Pope on the matter. Back in Nigeria, Plus TV Africa's Amaka Okoye spoke to the Director of Social Communications, Catholic Archdiocese in Lagos, and here's the report.
Just 3 weeks ago, Cardinal Theodore McCarrick, former Archbishop of Washington, D.C., and a prominent figure in the United States Catholic Church, stepped down amidst accusations of sexual abuse of children. The 88-year-old has been at the center of a growing scandal within the church over allegations of abuse of minors and adult men, an accusation he denies strongly. While the Catholic Church still struggles to come to terms with the scandals that has rocked it lately, a grand jury in Pennsylvania has on Tuesday released a chilling report with evidences accusing at least 300 priests of abusing up to 1,000 children in 6 states out of the 8 states. The Pennsylvania grand jury report lands as the sex abuse scandal in the church has reached a new stage. What implication does it have, and how does the church respond to it? With a population of more than 17 million Catholics in Nigeria, a deeply religious country, one wonders how all of this will play out.
It's nothing new, really, what they have been saying. I'm not in any way justifying that is sexual abuse. Neither am I in support of it. The church never sends any priest to be involved in that. We have disciplinary measures taken by the church to make sure that people are disciplined if they are involved in these offenses, either in the US, Nigeria, Calabar, Timbuktu, anywhere you are.
The Catholic Church has constantly been plagued with sexual scandals, prompting people to call for more sanctions on priests found guilty. Even though there are allegations that the acts of the canonical trial hides priests found guilty from public accountability, the Church says the guilty face the law irrespective of where it occurs.
They will deal with them. They don't see, you are the priest, yes, you are the priest, but they don't see you more than a priest. Well, the law takes its course. The church is open. The church is not in any way cloaking itself with pride. The Pope himself is very clear. Mea culpa, mea culpa, mea culpa. That is, we are sorry.
Perhaps stiffer sanctions and conditions need to be carried out as regards the criteria to be a priest, and also the constant supervision and vigilance of the people of the cloak. For Plus TV Africa, Amaka Okoye.
When we return right from this break, we'll bring you the stories making the headlines from the international scene. Don't go anywhere. And on the foreign scene, former cricketer Imran Khan has been sworn in as the new Prime Minister of Pakistan more than 2 decades after he entered politics. He was elected Prime Minister in a vote at the country's National Assembly on Friday. His PTI party won the most seats in July's elections, and Mr. Khan has become Prime Minister with the help of small parties. On Saturday morning, Mr. Khan was tearful and smiled as he stumbled over some of the words of his quote led by the country's president, Manoon Hussain. Members of the 1992 Cricket World Cup winning team that Mr. Khan captained to victory watched the ceremony alongside senior PTI figures and military officials. And in India, Prime Minister Narendra Modi flew over the worst floods in a century to hit Kerala on Saturday, surveying the damage with her skilled 164 people and forced 200,000 into relief camps. During the current monsoon, Kerala has been hit with over a third more rain than average, according to India's weather office. Further heavy rainfalls has been forecast for most parts of the state on Saturday, and authorities said they plan to implement controlled releases of water from dams to manage flows and minimize damage. Rains are expected to subside to light to moderate levels on Sunday, that is the 19th of August, tomorrow. The Southwestern Coastal States Chief Minister Pinarayi Vijayan is seeking military reinforcement to boost rescue efforts. Italy mourned the victims of the collapse of a motorway bridge in the northern city of Genoa with a state funeral on Saturday, as rescue workers kept searching for the last few unaccounted people buried in the rubble. The mass for 19 of the victims was held at the Exhibition and Trade Center of the northern port city and led by the city's Archbishop Cardinal Angelo Bagnasco, but some of the victims' families boycotted the event and held their own private services as a protest against the state, seen as negligent in its role of overseeing safety on the privately run bridge. The mass was held at the Exhibition and Trade Center and led by the city's Archbishop Cardinal Angelo Bagnasco. Bagnasco, during his homily, said the collapse of the bridge wounded Genoa's heart and caused endless pain. We now take a flip to the business side of life. And in business news, a capital market-wide committee will be established to drive the guidelines and framework for the financial technology industry in Nigeria by the Securities and Exchange Commission. This was disclosed by the Acting General of SEC Nigeria, Mary Udok, as one of the key resolutions of the second quarter of 2018 Capital Market Committee meeting. Mrs. Udok says the committee will provide guidelines on best approach to fintech ecosystem in the country. The committee also noted that electronic distributions of annual reports will go on.
The Commission would constitute a market-wide financial technology committee to develop a fintech framework for the Nigerian capital market. We know that fintech is the way to go. That is, technology is the way to go. And if other industries are embracing it, it's time that the capital market come together and develop a framework, and that is what we have agreed to do. We are setting up a committee to do that. Because technology is taking over the world, wherever you are in the entire world, once your email address is known, you can get your annual report, audited annual report of your company. And we discovered that the money that was being wasted to print annual reports would now be available for distribution as part of dividends, if those monies can be saved. So why do you have to waste such monies when you can use electronic technology to do it? So we agree with the market to implement a pilot exercise for 1 year. That 1 year ended in June. When June ended, SEC conducted an impact assessment to see how it went. And yesterday the result of the assessment was considered. And it was found that everybody agreed that technology is the way to go.
So talking business, the Nigerian Army has earmarked 7.5 billion naira for 321 post-service estates in Otukpo, Benue State. The public-private partnership between PHDL and the Bentonik West Limited is expected to be completed in the next 2 years. Brigadier General M. Bashir, Managing Director, Post-Service Housing Development Limited, while signing the agreement yesterday in Abuja, said the initiative is part of efforts to reduce the national housing deficit in the country. According to him, Nigeria has a large housing deficit that needs to be surmounted, and by the new initiative, they would be able to deliver 321 housing units in Otukpo. He said PHDL has been embarking on public-private partnerships in order to increase house stock, which by extension will reduce the deficit. He, however, noted that the company has over the years provided over 300,000 housing units and thousands of service plots to retiring personnel and the general public. And away from business news now, we now bring you a timeline of the life and times of late icon Kofi Annan.
Mourning the death of the 7th Secretary General of the United Nations, Kofi Annan. He was born on the 8th of April 1938 in Kumasi, Ghana. From 1954 to 1957, Mr. Annan attended the elite Fansimpin School, a Methodist boarding school in Cape Coast founded in the 1870s. Annan went on to study economics at Macalester College, international relations from the Graduate Institute in Geneva, and management at Massachusetts Institute of Technology. He began his career at the United Nations in 1962, working for the World Health Organization's Geneva office. He went on to work in several capacities at the UN headquarters, including serving as Under-Secretary General for Peacekeeping between 1992 and December 1996. Kofi Annan was appointed as the Secretary General on the 13th of December 1996 by the Security Council and later confirmed by the General Assembly, making him the first office holder to be elected from the UN staff itself. Kofi Annan's two-term tenure in the United Nations as Secretary General reformed the UN bureaucracy. He worked to combat HIV and AIDS, especially in Africa, and launched the UN Global Impact. After leaving the United Nations, he founded the Kofi Annan Foundation in 2007 to work on international development and mobilize political will to overcome threats to peace, development, and human rights. The foundation was also humanitarian funding for malaria and HIV and AIDS. His humanitarian work won him a Nobel Prize, but also earned him a lot of critics. In 2012, Mr. Kofi Annan was the UN Arab League Joint Special Representative for Syria to help find a lasting solution to the ongoing conflict there. In September 2016, he was appointed to lead a UN commission to investigate the Rohingya crisis. Kofi Annan got married to Titi Alakija, a Nigerian woman from an aristocratic family, in 1965, and together they had 2 children, a boy and a girl. The couple separated in the late 1970s and divorced in 1983. In 1984, Kofi Annan married Nani Maria Lagergren, a Swedish lawyer at the United Nations. He died peacefully on the morning of August 18, 2018, after a brief illness. He was aged 80.
And still ahead on Plus TV Africa is our roundup on entertainment and sports news. We'll be back in just a moment. Don't go anywhere. And in entertainment news, the President Actors Guild of Nigeria, Emeka Rollas, during the week took stock of his administration's 1 year in office, declaring that they have succeeded in charting a new course for the once troubled guild. He emerged the head of the interim government after he defeated Emeka Ike at an election that was organized by the guild's Congress in Enugu State about a year ago. AGN celebrates 1 year in office of this government of national unity. Before the foundation was saddled with the responsibility of governance, Nollywood is no longer about appearing on the screen. It is now about what comes to you as an actor, even after many years of appearances. Emeka Rollas said his administration is pursuing world-best standards as proud affiliates of Federation International Actors, FIA. We now cross over to the world of sports as we bring you the latest updates. Stay tuned. And in sports news, Jamaican sprinter Usain Bolt has arrived in Australia for a trial with A-League club Central Coast Mariners, saying his goal of playing professional football is for real. The 8-time Olympic sprint champion is hoping to earn a contract in time for the start of the A-League season in October and will be eager to make an impression when he begins training with the Mariners on Tuesday, which is his 32nd birthday. The Jamaican, who holds the world record for both 100-meter and 200 meters, has trained with a number of clubs since retiring from the track, including Borussia Dortmund, Norwegian side Strømsgodset, and Mamelodi Sundowns in South Africa. However, none of them have worked out. Club officials have said the Bolt will be with them for an indefinite period and will be treated as any other player, as he would not be offered a contract if he did not make the grade. And Arsenal goalkeeper David Ospina has left the Emirates to join Italian club Napoli on a season-long loan. The 29-year-old Colombian is the third keeper to move to Napoli, who are now coached by former Chelsea boss Carlo Ancelotti. This summer, Ospina joined the Gunners in 2014 from French side Nice and was not likely to have a lot of first-team opportunities following the arrival of Bernd Leno from Germany club Bayer Leverkusen. The Colombian international, who has 90 caps for his country, won 2 FA Cups during his time at Emirates. And that's it on sports news. And there you have it, our news roundup of events at this hour. For more news, updates and broadcasts, please remember to follow us at Plus TV Africa. That's on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram. And do remember to follow us, subscribe, I beg your pardon, to our YouTube page at Plus TV Africa. I'm David Alabi and many thanks for watching. Good afternoon.